Good morning, everyone. If I haven't met you, my name is George Hopkins. I have the privilege of being a pastor here at Sweebo Community Church. We typically meet inside of the school here at Stewart Hill Academy, and we're out here, and it's good for us to be together. I just want to share briefly of why we're here and how we've gotten here. Two people that you just saw, Rachel and Cecilia. It's good for us to remember that the reason that our core team, PROAction, which is a group of people working to connect with our community and community organizing, it all started, honestly, from people's anger and frustration with the death and murder of George Floyd. I want to remind us of that, because many times, many people now are forgetting the angst that they felt back then. And people in our church, Teresa and Rachel, said, what are we going to do about it? Not just on a national scale, but within our city, within our community, what are we going to do? And so for the last 3 months, this group's been meeting every single month, twice a month, asking, what do we do? What do we do? That is what has brought us here today. It is an unfortunate reality that often death leads to life. When we think of whether it was George Floyd or many, many years ago when it was Emmett Till, when he was murdered, many people then began to say, what do we do? Even we think of our Savior Jesus Christ and his death and resurrection, leading us to not only believe in the resurrected life, but then living out that life here on earth. It is an unfortunate reality that often death begets life. So we're here still asking this question, what are we going to do about it? And we're going to learn today, what does it mean to go out and listen to our community? I have learned this in time that we can't obey that commandment to love our neighbor well until we have also learned to listen to our neighbor well. And we're here to learn what does it look like to listen. And we're going to go out and we're going to say door to door and we're going to listen to our neighbor. Why are we going door to door? Because we believe that Jesus didn't start working in our community when we arrived. That Jesus is already at work. And we're going and we're knocking on door to door in many ways, seeking the kingdom of God. Who is God working through already? What leaders are God already working in who are impacting and building up their community and celebrate the work that God is already doing? This is one thing I have learned. Our situation of our city and our community, we are not here with the trials and obstacles we have, and it was not inevitable that our city would be this way. It was not destined that we would have the trials that we face today. It was determined. And we are here today to be trained and equipped with our determination that we will be a part of the work and the solution of what our city should be like. And because of what the Lord is doing in our lives, will be like in the days, months, and years to come. I want to encourage us, it's going to take some level of determination. Are y'all ready for that? Are y'all ready for determination? Y'all don't sound determined to me. I'm telling y'all, because y'all going to hear some stories and y'all going to be challenged very soon. And you're going to say, why am I here? You need to remember the anger after George Floyd's death. You need to remember the angst when you look at what's happening in our community. You need to remember it and know that it doesn't have to be this way. And that the Lord is calling us to act. The last thought I want to share before I introduce a new and good friend is that it's important for us to know that our world is this way because of people's action or inaction. We all have a part of the well-being of our city. Our inaction or our action determines the well-being of our city. And today we are choosing to act and be a part of shaping the well-being of our community. A few months ago, I was able to stand at Sacred Heart of Jesus on the southeast side of Baltimore, which is a complete opposite of the southwest side, and to stand with then Father Bruce, who is now Bishop Bruce, to fight for and say, if the government is saying that anybody who can get COVID testing can get it, then why are people in his church being turned away from getting testing and people's lives were being lost and being damaged? Right. And I stood with him. We acted together, different parts of the city with the same interest, with the well-being of our community. And I'll tell you what I've learned is that you've seen testing increase in our city is because of voices that have acted and brought people together. And you're going to hear of very tangible, practical, real moments where people acted. And because of that, they've seen justice in their community. I'm a pastor, so I always say this is my last thought. This is my last thought. I want to say for us as a church family in Sweebo, we have been a church of great mercy. We can feed those who are hungry. We can give housing to those who don't have a place to go. We can give clothing to those who don't have clothes. And in the last year, we've been wrestling with what does it look like for us to be a church of justice? The Bible says the Lord has shown you what to do, O man. It says that you would act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And we've acted just merciful, but it's time for us to act toward justice. Why? I don't know about y'all, but I get tired of having moments in my situation where I'm trying to help people, and it's just a cycle after cycle after cycle, because there's a system and a culture that has been set to keep that cycle going. I don't want to just help feed somebody. I want to build a grocery store, right? I'm tired of going into prisons and meeting with young men who are in love and working through different things and saying, how do we get a justice system that is more just? I don't want to just act in mercy. We have to begin to say, how do we act toward justice? And if you've heard me say this before, mercy, all it requires of us is love. All I need is compassion to give somebody a plate. But justice demands power. Power that says, not only can I give you the plate of food, but we have the power to build a restaurant. I can go and meet somebody in prison with mercy and love, but if they're innocent, I don't have the power to get them released. Justice requires that we walk in power. And the power that we have comes from two sources, the Holy Spirit and the work that God is doing in the multitude of people in our community. Church family, I celebrate the mercy we've had. And we press forward to attain the power we need to establish works of justice.
When I met Juana, she moved with her 3 children every day to a different apartment. Every day she was looking to stay with a different family member or friend. Over a course of a month, and she stayed in one place for a week at a time. And then for months, every week, she and her 3 children moved to a different house because they were afraid that immigration would find them, that she would be detained, that her children would be separated from her, potentially she could be deported. That she lived like that for more than a year. First, day to day, moving from relatives' house to friends' houses, and then week after week, finding another room, another apartment, a basement to stay in. Antonio is a man in our church who was working on his car one day right in front of his house. He had his head under the hood. And as he was working on his car, somebody came by and shouted right in his ear. He looked up, and a man threw gasoline in his face and robbed him. When I talked to Antonio, he told me about the experience. I said, did you call the police? He said, no, why would I do that? They're not going to do anything except maybe get me in trouble with immigration. Jose and his family came home from the supermarket, and they parked in front of their row home, and his wife and his children went in the house with bags of groceries, and he stayed out just to straighten out their car and to get the rest of the groceries. Well, his wife noticed that he was taking a long time, a really long time. He hadn't come in, so she went outside only to find that ICE was there, and they had been waiting for them to get home. And he was taken and detained. I tell you those stories. Now I'm going to tell you a story that for me was a wake-up story, a story that made me think and pay attention and helped me to reflect in a different way. A family was eating breakfast. This is back when there's school. ICE broke their front door down and came in while children are getting ready for school, eating their breakfast. Mom's getting lunches ready, dad's getting ready to go to work. Guns drawn, they broke down the front door, came into their home. One of the ICE officers, as they're standing there, they're looking for somebody, notices that the oldest boy in the family has a Catholic school uniform on from St. Joseph's Prep, an elite Jesuit high school. This family from Guatemala is there eating their breakfast. ICE, we're talking about 6:30 in the morning. ICE breaks down their door, says, we're looking for God knows who. And one of the ICE officers notices a Catholic school uniform from a Jesuit high school. And it happened that that ICE officer graduated from the same school. And he looked at the kid, the high school kid, and said, "Why are you wearing that uniform?" He says, "Because I go to school there." He says, "You can't go to school there. Why are you wearing that uniform?" The kid says, "I'm a sophomore at St. Joe's Prep. This is our uniform." And the ICE officer looks and says, "Impossible. Impossible." The officers huddled in a corner and started to talk to each other. After about 10 minutes, they came back to where the family was huddled in their living room and said, "We must have the wrong house. I'm sorry, we shouldn't have disturbed you. We're going to leave now. We hope you're all right. Have a good day." I tell that story because the church was present there. And the church made a difference in a way that was really unexpected, a school uniform. But because the church was present there, somehow, some way, in some form, that family was protected. That family was kept safe. That family was kept together. And to this day, they're doing fine. I tell that story because it's one of the stories that touches my anger, as well as the other stories I told you of Juana, I told you of Antonio, I told you of Jose. Those are stories of people's lives here in Baltimore that make me stand up and clench my fists and grit my teeth and make my stomach growl. I do what I do with Build because the church needs to be there, present in people's lives. And I'm speaking specifically about my church and my community and the lives of immigrant people whose lives are uncertain, whose lives are threatened, whose families are threatened. If I would say, why do I do what I do at Sacred Heart of Jesus? If I had to say that, to put it in one word, it's anger. Anger. I'm motivated by anger, and I think it's a just, holy, and righteous anger. It's an anger that says, I need to make a difference in people's lives. I want to stand with you, for you, by you, in front of you, behind you, next to you, so that ICE won't get you. I remember actually at a news conference that Reverend Hopkins and I were at, that I stood in front of a TV camera and I said to ICE immigration officers in our city of Baltimore, I said, if you want any of my parishioners, you got to come through me first. And I said it and I meant it and I still do. And I think the key thing here is ICE is not afraid of Sacred Heart of Jesus. ICE is not made nervous by Sacred Heart of Jesus, but I want them to be. I want to build the kind of power in our community where when ICE shows up at a door, they have in the back of their mind, these people might be members of Sacred Heart of Jesus. We better be careful. I want in the back of minds of people who are out to do harm and hurt, to have in their minds, these folks, maybe they belong to Sacred Heart of Jesus. We better be careful. We better treat them with dignity and respect. We better reverence them. We better respect them. How to build that power is to do what Jesus did. And by that, I mean, Jesus did not have an office. Jesus didn't have a secretary. Jesus didn't have a bureaucratic system for people to go through. He didn't give out numbers for people to stand in line. He didn't have applications for people to fill out, registration forms. It's interesting. There's only very few times that we find Jesus that he goes into the synagogue. Very few times. The rest of the time, he is in people's homes. or out in the open, meeting and greeting people by the roadside, in the marketplace, meeting people one-to-one, talking with them, conversing with them. And often the question that's on Jesus' mind is, what do you want? How are you doing? What can we do together? What can I do for you? And so our model as a church is, as Pope Francis has told us over and over again over the last 8 years since he's been the Pope in the Catholic Church, he said we need to be a church that goes out. And paradoxically, the more you go out, the more people will want to come in. The more you go out, the more people will seek you out. The more you're present in the community, the stronger your church community will be. And so at our church, Sacred Heart of Jesus, we took that seriously. 2 years ago, we went out door to door and we claimed our territory. Our territory, if you're familiar with the section of Baltimore where we are in Highlandtown, we claimed 95 to North Central. We claimed Orleans all the way to Boston Street as our church's territory, our mission territory. And we went out on mission. We called our church together and we were shocked. We were surprised. We said, we're going to go out. We're a happy church, a joyful church. Pope Francis says we have to be a church alegre, a happy church. He said we have to be a church that goes out and a church of encounter. So in Spanish, alegre, una iglesia en salida, una iglesia de encuentro, y una iglesia de hermanos y hermanas. So a church that's joyful, a church that goes out, a church that encounters others to build a family of brothers and sisters. And so we took that seriously and we went out in that territory. Our first meeting, we were caught by surprise. We made 20 copies of our agenda and we opened up the hall and we kept going to make more copies. We expected about 20, maybe 20. We were optimistic. There were 70 people at our first meeting to talk about going out and knocking on doors. Those folks recruited 150 people. And 150 people attended 5 trainings where we learned first about what is it Jesus asks of us in this work? What is Jesus calling us to do? How does Jesus want us to be in this ministry? Reflecting on the teachings of our church and the sacred scriptures. And then we divided up that territory into 35 small communities. Block by block, we traced it out on the map. I should show you, I have stacks of maps because we had to keep retracing, redrawing maps to include more people and to reach more people. 35 maps of neighborhoods where we sent our missionaries who went knocking door to door. And what did they do? They knocked on the door, they introduced themselves. They said, we're your neighbors. We care about you because we're all in this together. I mentioned to Reverend Hopkins and to Rachel, one of the young people in our church, had the greatest image for what we were doing and how to introduce ourselves. She said, we're all in a fishbowl, different fish swimming in the same water. And if somebody dumps something into that water, whatever it is, we're all affected. And so we went into our neighborhood with that attitude, with that idea, with that understanding that we're all in this together, immersed in this same pool that is our part of Baltimore. And whatever happens here affects everybody. And so we out to everybody, meeting them as a brother and sister. Hi, how are you? We're neighbors. We want to get to know you. Want to know, are you worried about what we're worried about? We know that there was crime committed right here down the street. A man was robbed at gunpoint at 5 o'clock in the morning as he was going out. This actually happened. 5 o'clock in the morning, going out to work. And gunpoint, they stole his car. I said, did you know that happened? So we did a lot of things. We looked at the crime reports for our neighborhood where crimes had been committed in specific places. We looked at where there was abandoned houses. We looked at where houses were being sold. We looked at where there were stores, no stores. We looked at where schools were and how the schools were doing. We did an examination of the neighborhoods on the map. And then as we went out to people, we knew what to look for, what to listen for. And we asked folks, what are you concerned about? What do you care about? What are you afraid of? What's the best about our neighborhood? Why do you choose to live here? Interesting, some folks choose to live in our neighborhood because they have $500,000 condos that were just built in the last 3 years. And they're choosing to live there because they work in Washington and it's an easy commute. And we have other folks who are living there and they can't wait to get out. And they feel they don't have a choice where to live. And so we went and met people and we with our 150 missionaries, formed 35 small communities. And what we didn't know at that time is that we were building power. We really weren't aware of it, not really. We thought we were building relationships, and then the next step was, wait a minute, look what we've done here. And we set ourselves up to handle a pandemic. We set ourselves up, we put ourselves in the perfect position of power to be able to address the needs of our community in a time of pandemic. With food, testing, with outreach, and that's actually what Jose is going to talk about a little bit, about his experience of why he organizes, why he's a part of Build, why in our church he sees us as part of his faith. And Jose is a key leader in our community on Parish ID. He's a key leader in our house door-to-door visits. He's a key leader in our food delivery and advocacy program, our home isolation program. So, Jose, if you want to come up, si quiere compartir unas palabras con nosotros. So I'll translate. Good morning.
Sorry, I help you me because my English very bad. Soy José Melo. Trabajo por muchos años para el Sagrado Corazón de Jesús.
So I'm Jose Melo, and I worked for many years for Sacred Heart of Jesus Church.
Trabajo de la mano con todos los padres y el señor Monseñor.
So I work with all the priests and pastors in our church.
Yo trabajo como portavoz para colaboración en la iglesia, para aquellas personas que verdaderamente están en necesidad. Mucha gente me pregunta que por qué yo estoy en PIO.
So a lot of people ask me, why am I in Build?
Ese es mi punto primordial y fundamental para hacerles saber qué es PIO.
So I want you to know most fundamentally and basically why I'm involved in Build.
Me siento, y puedo decirlo, que el que está en PIO no está desprotegido, está protegido porque PIO protege los derechos constitucionales de las personas cuando son violados.
So Build helps to protect people's rights or constitutional rights, especially when they've been abused or violated.
Por lo que me incorporé en PIO, le voy a hacer una historia corta.
I'm going to tell a short story about why I'm in Build.
El 9 de enero del 2014,
So January 2nd, 2014,
a las 2 de la tarde,
2 o'clock in the afternoon,
yo tenía un grocery store en el 526 de la South Small, aquí a 3 minutos de aquí.
so I had a small grocery store 3 minutes from here on South Small Street.
Llegó una persona de la nada,
So
me mató mi cuñado,
somebody came into our store and killed my brother-in-law.
me le dio 4 tiros a mi señora.
My wife was hit by 4 bullets.
Hoy está cogiendo mi señora, no murió, gracias a Dios y a la Virgen.
Thanks be to God and the Blessed Virgin, my wife didn't die.
Señora está cogiendo terapia psicológica,
So my wife is still in therapy.
está yendo el psicólogo y el psiquiatra, pero gracias a Dios no murió.
Thanks be to God, she didn't die.
Ahí pensé, me sentía desprotegido en ese momento porque lo cual las autoridades no me sentía a gusto con la investigación.
So I didn't feel protected and safe at that time because of the investigation of the authorities.
Una semana después me dijeron las autoridades que el caso se había cerrado porque la persona se había matado, porque ese mismo día la persona ya había violado 2 mujeres una semana antes. Y ese mismo día que pasó esa tragedia también mató a otra persona.
So the authorities told me that the case was closed and that the man who had shot my wife and killed my brother-in-law himself had been killed. And so they closed the case.
Lo cual me sentí bien decepcionado de las autoridades.
I felt deceived by the authorities.
Recibí información, instrucciones en San Patricio, en la iglesia de San Patricio, de Bill.
I got information about Build one day at St. Patrick's Church.
Vino una comisión de Washington, D.C.
There was a police commissioner that came to speak from Washington.
Ahí me incorporé en vivo porque vi que era la única manera y la única salida de yo proteger mis derechos que me corresponden constitucional.
And so after hearing him, and actually it was a build meeting with police officers and folks from Washington, D.C. And after hearing them speak, I decided to join Build.
Y me incorporé en Bio para proteger los derechos de los demás, ya que los míos no se protegieron, ni los de mi familia, porque era la única manera de yo sentirme satisfecho y realizado, defendiendo los derechos y ayudando a los demás.
So I got into Build because I didn't want what happened to me to happen to other people. Not just the violence, but also what happened in our interactions with the police and other authorities.
2 meses después, el Monseñor Bruce
2 months later,
propuso un ID, a Bio le propuso un ID para aquella persona que no tenía un medio de identificación.
our church began to work on the parish ID, an identification program and card for folks who don't have any identification, especially immigrants.
Porque muchas personas estaban siendo agredidas en las calles, lo cual no podían llamar a la policía porque no tenían un medio de identificación.
People were being robbed in the streets because bad people knew they had no identification and that they wouldn't ask for help because they had no way to identify themselves.
Con la idea del Monseñor y de Bill, hizo el esfuerzo y la colaboración máxima con el alcalde y el comisionado de la policía que se firmara el acuerdo del ID, lo cual hizo posible Bill.
So with build and hard work, we were able to get a parish ID. What Jose is not going to tell you is that he helped turn out more than 600 people at Kingdom Life Church. He single-handedly filled 3 buses on his own. He's not going to tell you that, but he filled 3 buses on his own, and he motivated others in the church to get on board and help fill buses to go to Kingdom Life Church, where we met with Mayor Catherine Pugh to get her to support parish ID.
También vio lo que va de la pandemia del COVID-19, ha hecho lo posible de hacerle llegar el pan de cada día a muchas personas, lo cual este servidor.
So Build is helping and with our leadership to deliver food. Pan de todos los días, bread for every day, our daily bread every day to people's homes each week. And Jose's not going to tell you this, but I would tell you that he delivers weekly himself 70 to 80 boxes of food door to door, takes boxes of food where for 20 weeks now, I believe it's 20 weeks, he has been watching over the families that he delivers the food to. He's not just giving food, he's watching over, being there as a bridge person, connecting folks to service, to their church, to their community, watch over for their safety, for their good health, and really for lack of a better word, their stability, that they can really continue without fear and anxiety and so many things during this time of pandemic. But tenemos que terminar porque
Sí,
Pedro también quiere terminar.
Okay, sí, quiero
Pedro
saber.
también quiere hablar.
I have that information, but I can't have only 5 minutes, 7 minutes. Por eso estoy en vivo, porque el que está en vivo se siente protegido y es de la única manera que yo me siento satisfecho con lo que me pasó ayudando a los demás. Entonces, thank you, Bill.
So I feel strong with Build, protected by Build, and my participation in Build really helps me come to terms with what I experience in my own life as I help other people. Pedro,
Thank you.
Gracias, José.
Muy buenos días, queridos, amados hermanos en Cristo Jesús.
Good morning, beloved brothers and sisters in Christ.
Mi nombre es Pedro Ortega, soy de Ecuador.
I'm Pedro Ortega, and I'm from Ecuador.
Quiero compartir un poquito de la misión hace 2 años. Misión de todos es para todos.
So I want to share a little bit about our mission 2 years ago. The mission is for all and by all is a theme.
En esa misión, pues nos tocó tocar las puertas en cada área de cada pueblo. A nosotros nos tocó una área donde que nadie habla español.
So we divided up our parish. We went out on mission And me in particular, I got sent to an area where nobody spoke Spanish.
Entonces empezamos a recorrer, tocando las puertas de las casas.
We went around knocking on all the doors.
Tocamos las puertas. Hay hogar que no estaban
Some houses, nobody was home.
y otros que estaban una familia.
Some, just a family.
Y salíamos, nosotros saludamos, dijimos buenos días, dijimos en español, y teníamos dos niños que traducían.
We used our children to translate when people came out and spoke to us in English.
Y empezamos a platicar sobre la fe.
We would speak with them about our faith.
Entonces decía, nosotros no podemos recibir a ustedes, nosotros somos de otra religión.
Sometimes they would say, well, we don't want to talk to you because we're another religion.
Seguimos a otra vecindad, también tocó la puerta y no nos abrieron.
Some places just didn't open their doors.
En esas 5 semanas de recorrido tocando las puertas, Dios nos hizo ver en cada ser humano, Dios estaba presente.
So for 5 weeks, we knocked on doors, and God showed us how he's present in every person.
En ese encuentro, en ese recorrido, vemos una familia necesitada de pan de cada día y necesitaba también la palabra de Dios.
We met people who were in need of food, their daily bread, but we also met people in need of God's word.
En una familia encontramos que era una familia católica.
One Catholic family that we found,
Nos recibieron con los brazos abiertos.
they received us with open arms.
Y en una casa encontramos una familia por punto de separarse.
The family was at the point of separation or divorce.
La esposa estaba llevando a sus 2 hijos.
The
Yes.
lady was leaving with her 2 children.
Nos entramos, empezamos a conversar la fe, qué es Dios para tu vida. Y ella le dijo, "Pues yo soy católica, pero no tengo mucha fe en Dios."
So we kind of encountered this lady, and she said, I'm Catholic, but I don't have much faith in God.
Entonces nosotros dijimos, mira hermana, Dios está aquí y está en su corazón. Sientas el amor de Dios, de la misericordia de Dios, porque gracias a Dios estás viva.
God is here, God loves you, and thanks be to God, you're here, God is alive.
Entonces nosotros también sentimos el amor de Dios por medio del sacerdote que nos enseñó todo lo que teníamos que decir, y nosotros también sentimos ese momento, la necesidad que lleva cada hogar en la familia. Cada hogar necesita de Dios y necesita de nosotros poder compartir la belleza que Dios nos da a nosotros.
So that one household and many other households, we became aware are in need of God's loving presence. I'm going to interrupt here because I think Pedro is not going to tell you how many doors he knocked on in 5 weeks, which are probably, it's close to around 400 doors over the course of 5 weeks that he and other leaders with him went door to door. And he's not going to tell you that he set up 2 house meetings in the neighborhoods where he knocked on doors, and they met for 5 weeks every Friday in house meetings. And what he's not going to tell you is that because of him, we were able to make interventions because people were going to be evicted from their homes because they couldn't pay rent. There were people there who needed interventions because they had difficulty with their children attending school and they weren't getting the resources and help they needed. And Pedro's not going to, there's so much more. But Pedro's a very spiritual man, a very holy man, a great leader in our church. Gracias, Pedro, por su compartir. Gracias por su
Gracias a todos.
energía, su fuerza, y su buen ejemplo. And what I like, and I'm going to finish with this, is people come to the church asking for Pedro. So they don't come to the church asking for Bishop Bruce. They come and say, is Pedro here? I need some help. And what that says to me is Pedro's a leader. He's a leader. And how he became a leader is he knocked on 400 doors and had 5 weeks of house meetings. And people have trust and confidence in him now. If they're in trouble, if they have a need, if there's a problem, they go to the church, because Pedro for them is the church.
So thank you for that. So real quick, what we've learned so far, we're looking for leaders. My job is to help us get concrete and get going, right? What we've learned so far is what a leader looks like. Does a leader have a shark skin suit?
No.
Does a leader drive a fancy car?
No.
Does a leader have to speak English?
No.
Does a leader have to have the best education in the world? Does a leader have to look like you? No, it does not. And if we don't first break down who we are looking for and who we are not looking for, we're going to go out and find the wrong people. We got a lot of things in our head that keep us from seeing who leaders really are in our community. And that's what we're going to go out and do today. One other thing that we've learned about a leader, just from listening today, is leaders are people that act. People who look at what's around them and make a decision because they got something that talks to them in their belly. Maybe it's not your belly for you. Maybe it's in your chest. Maybe it's in your back. Maybe it's in your fist. There's something that says life does not have to be like this. And I want something different. And I'm willing to wear my shoes out and hit every single door to figure out how I can have some power to be able to act on it. That's something else we've learned about a leader. You got to know why you're here. If you go out right now and you don't know why you're here, you're going to have some really awkward conversations, okay? So I want you to take 2 minutes, find someone you don't know, or if you know everybody because your church is beautifully connected, find someone you haven't seen in a while because you've only been on Zoom, stay 6 feet apart, and tell 2 minutes, why are you here today? I want you to tell a story. Is it the time that you met Juana and how that changed you and what you're looking for? Why do you need power to be able to act and have something different in the world? As you're coming back and you're thinking about the story that you just heard somebody else tell you, right? You just heard somebody else tell you something about themselves. If you were going to distill what you learned about the other person and what their motivation is, what their interest is, what the fire in their belly is, what is something that you just learned about somebody? And I want you to be able to give it to me in like 3 words, right? My name is who, I've met this person, and this is what I've learned about them through their story, okay? Great. So let's give a clap for Cynthia. So Cynthia is somebody who tries. She's tried a lot of different things. Cynthia, it sounds like to me that you're hunting for something. And you're trying to figure out all the different things that I've done. What am I going to do now? Now that I've learned all this, what am I going to do? That's interesting. I'm curious about that person. We're being curious and thoughtful. What has she gone through? What is she searching for? Why is she hunting down all these? I want to ask her more questions, right? Let's pick on somebody else. Tell me your name. Okay, she wants to come alongside other people. How did you learn that? What story did they tell you? New to the church? The church has been agitating and making you think about what your calling is, and you're feeling called to Baltimore, and you're learning what would it look like for me to do this well? Interesting. I want to know what's motivating her to do that. Who else? Who heard something, a story that they really want to share that taught them about who they are? Yes. Amen. Okay, well, we're gonna pick on Jonathan because you just made the perfect segue into where we're going next. So Jonathan was in the checkout line. He was talking to somebody and learned about the recent loss that they had in gun violence and the T-shirt that they were wearing, and used that opportunity to be curious and ask a question about what's been like for them. The things from that story are things that we need to be telling more people. We'll share these stories and figure out how we move power players, right? How we make things change in our community. So let's get real concrete. What we just did is what you're going to go do at the door. Your goal when you're going to the door is you're looking for a leader. Is this person a leader? How do I know? How do I spot a leader, right? You're not going to spot a leader if you show up and you go, hello, my name is Rachel Brooks. I'm here with Weevil Community Church, and I'm just here right now because I want to know, what are the issues that you want to fix in your neighborhood? I want to get this right, and I got my notes right here, and I want to get it right. I want to fill out my checklist. Tell me what it is that you want to fix in your neighborhood, right? Your job today is to go to listen to people, probe, ask questions, be curious. What are their hopes? What are their dreams for their neighborhood? What's their family look like? What is the anger in their belly? And be as present to that as possible. If you're going around to look to fix issues, you're going to find issues. If you go out to look to find leaders who probably have something to teach you, where God is already moving in their life, you're trying to add to your number. Bishop Bruce said something very important, that they started with 25 copies, and 25 became 70 copies, and 70 copies gave 150 people, and 150 people turned into how many doors, Bishop? Altogether, how many doors do you think you knocked on? Thousands of doors. And thousands of doors has turned into how many people show up to service every week online, even in the pandemic. 10,000 people show up to this church every week online. And what happened how many people showed up on Easter? 30,000 people showed up on Easter. What happens when you have the power to move 30,000 people? The governor of Maryland asks for your cell phone. That's who has his cell phone number right now. What happens when the governor of Maryland has your cell phone and your people are being targeted by ICE and dying because of the coronavirus? You can call the governor. When you can call the governor and be able to move money, what does that do for your community? That's what you're going for. You want some power to be able to move and act. And we believe power is organized people and organized money. You got to know why you want power, and you got to be curious why they might want power. That's what we're looking for. Is that clear? Yeah? So real quick, we're gonna get right to what's the conversation at the door sound like with my very rattled notebook here. So you got to know why you're here. Number two, we got to have a conversation where we say that the action is in the reaction, right? The action is in the reaction. So what kind of reaction are we trying to elicit at the door? We want to, number one, credential ourselves. You're knocking on my door at 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Why do I want to answer the door for you? I'm in my PJs. I'm having my coffee. I voted already, right? You're going to get no's. You're going to get no's. You got to be ready to be rejected. It's going to be okay, all right? The people are going to say, don't ever come back again. You're going to get someone who's going to yell at you. It's going to be okay. You got to move on. You're going to have the person who's going to send their kid to the window. And the curtain's going to be there. And they're going to peek around the curtain and say, who are these people? Is it an Amazon package? There's some people here at the door. What are you going to do, right? Wave, hey, it's this weird person outside. Can you come out for a minute? Hey, can you come out for a minute? You got to be willing to look a little crazy. Be willing to look a little bit strange. And then the person makes the big risk of opening the door to talk to a stranger during a pandemic. What's the first thing you're going to do? Thanks for talking to me. You're also going to do this because we're going to be very safe, right? Hey, how are you? I got this mask on, so I'm going to have to talk a little bit louder. I'm going to have to try not to scream at you, which is not my gift, okay? I'm going to have to talk. Hey, how are you? And then I got to introduce myself. My name is Rachel. I'm here with Sowebo Community Church. Back to my, hey, my name is Rachel. Here with Sowebo Community Church in Build. How are you doing today? I'm okay. What do you want? Right? I already voted. Hey, we're out here today because I don't know if you know Pastor George Hopkins in our church. We're right here at Stewart Hill. We're out here today trying to get to know our neighbors a little bit and see what life is like for you during the pandemic. How are you today? How's your family doing? That's the conversation, right? And then be able to ask, be interested. You know, hey, I don't want to make assumptions about what's going on in people's lives. I see you have kids in the home. How's it been going to school? I have kids myself. I've been struggling with the hot spots. They keep getting cut off when they go to school. Come on, T. Right? Yeah. Hey, have you noticed? A lot of us live around here. We had a lot of trash that keeps getting piled up in the alleys. What day does DPW come by to pick up your trash? I'm curious. They never come by to pick up my trash. There's trash all the time in the alley. Really? Tell me more about that. Ask, be interested, right? Most importantly, is this person somebody who wants to do something about it, right? Is this person somebody who's already a leader? We define a leader in our work as somebody who has a following that they can deliver consistently. So right now, if all of you are part of Pastor George's following, let's count. What's Pastor George's following? About 30 people, right? And he delivered you here. If you show up to the next time, then you're still part of that following, right? Are you a leader if you say you can show up with 2 people and you show up with none? You're not. Are you a leader if you say you're going to show up with somebody and you bring that one person? Yes, you are. You had a following, your following is one. And leaders are made, not born, right? So who else respects this person? Hey, I hear you talking about trash. That's really interesting to me. I think there are other people in this neighborhood who are interested in that. If we were to pull together a group of people to have a conversation, would you want to come? Who else would you bring to that? Hey, I'm still trying to get to know the neighborhood. Who else do you know here that you respect? Who else should we be talking to? We really just want to understand what it's like for other people like us. That's the conversation. Does that work? Questions, reactions, we're blazing through because we're a little bit behind. So we have our credential in the beginning that says why I'm worth your time. Here I am, I'm inside of the neighborhood. We have to say, here's why I'm here, here's my purpose, the cause. Hey, I'm here to get to know more people in my neighborhood, just trying to say hello today. And we got to get consent. Hey, can I talk to you for a second? You want someone to say yes? You want it agreed? Yes. Hey, I'll talk to you for a second. I'll give you a little bit of my time. And then you want to relate. How are you? What has it been like for you in the pandemic? What's been like for your family? I'm curious. How long have you lived in the neighborhood? What do you love about it? Right? If you have to drill it down to one question, I'm curious, if you had power to do one thing to change your neighborhood or change the city, what would you do? What's the most important thing that would bring something good to you and your family? You're just trying to probe and be curious. Does that make sense? This is uncomfortable conversation because we don't really like to actually talk to people about what's really going on in their life. Yes, we ask about education, invite them to a meeting. Do we have a meeting on the calendar? Tuesday?
They meet every other Tuesday.
Hey, I don't know if you're curious, if we want to talk, you sound really interesting. I'd like to talk more with you. And there are other people like me who are trying to, really think about these things. Would you want to come to a meeting on Tuesday? Do you want to invite everybody you talk to? No, you do not. No, you do not want everybody that you meet. Okay. You're looking for somebody who's got curiosity, who has that fire in their belly, someone who is relational. And the way to do that, T, is to get to story. Right? So someone starts saying, oh yeah, this bothers me, or yeah, I've lived here for 30 years. Oh, tell me about that. Can you tell me about a story? Can you tell me a story about that? I'm curious. Try to probe them to tell you a story rather than to list off complaints. Yeah? Because that's how you get to see, is this person relational at all? Okay, good. Let's do a quick role play. Bishop, do you want to pick a victim and try to do a door-to-door conversation?
By knocking on door. Go ahead. Okay. I do it like in the Bronx. Ooh. Hello.
Hey, my name is Jonathan. You can I talk to you for a second?
Sure. What's up?
Hey, so I'm with Sowevo Community Church and Build.
Is that near here somewhere?
Yeah. So Sowevo, we meet before the pandemic, of course, but we meet in Stewart Hill Elementary School.
Oh, very good. What church is that again? What?
It's Sowevo Community Church.
What denomination would that be?
So we're not part of a denomination. We've been here in the neighborhood for about 6 years.
Wow, that's a long time. Why here?
So I know that I just moved to the neighborhood about 4 months ago, but people who've been part of the church have been really burdened by the Southwest Baltimore area, and not just wanting to care about those things from a distance, the burdens of the community, but become part of the community and really take on the needs and the burdens as their own. So that's part of why the church started a few years ago.
And so, can I help you with something today? I got some eggs and bacon on the stove there, and
yeah,
I think the toaster just went up.
I don't want to take you away from your breakfast, but I would love to take a few moments and just kind of hear more from you about how things have been for you in the middle of this pandemic. But like I said, I don't want to take you.
Well, I gotta be honest. Things are pretty rough. I don't have a job right now. Things are really difficult. I don't know if I'm gonna have a job. I'm putting out applications. Nobody seems to be responding. You're not hiring, are you, at the church?
We're not, as far as I know, we're not. Man, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I know that there's a lot of people who've experienced
Well,
that.
it's rough, and without those stimulus checks and all that, life is really hard.
Yeah. Have you been okay because of the stimulus checks, and then now that's kind of
Well, it's kind of dried up, and I'm just right now looking, putting applications, trying to do what I can. No hope yet at this point.
What line of work were you in?
I was working for the trash pickup.
Oh, I got
I was DPW picking up trash.
I see. Were you?
And now it seems there's no trash to pick up because they let me go.
Yeah, which I feel like a lot of our neighbors might have something that would see that differently, and I'm sure you feel that too. I'm sure
Well, you're hiring to pick up trash?
I'm not. I am actually. And now that you mention it, because the city hasn't been picking up the recycling, some people from our church have been getting together and picking up people's recycling and taking it to the drop-off point at Stewart Hill. So we're just doing it volunteer.
Well, I'd be interested in helping that. I got time on my hands.
Oh,
I'm
you
not
would?
doing too much. I'm
And
still applying
you've
for
got
jobs,
experience too.
Yeah, I'd be glad to help.
That would be wonderful. Could I get your contact info?
Maybe I could just call the church. You got any information on the church's
Yeah,
number? I could just call the church.
I'll have a number for you.
Let's give him a round of applause. Give him another round of applause. First one up. Let's shout out some feedback. What do you think worked? What worked about the interaction? Asking questions. What was the best part of the interaction? What do you do? Oh, hey, how are you? It wasn't servicey. It wasn't, hey, I'm here to help you, right? It was like, how are you? What's your name? What do you do? What else worked? That's right. You got an agenda, right? You can't come with an agenda. You're here to talk about the digital divide, or you're here to talk about some very, very intellectual idea. But what I really care about is the fact that I keep having these kids throw balls at my window because they're outside playing in the park and it's bothering me. Or this kid keeps driving his dirt bike. Do you see people blow through that stop sign all the time? You gotta go with the flow. The other person is the agenda. What else? What other feedback? How are you doing? Hey, how are you getting by? I'll let you know it's not been too easy over at my house. Or my family's been well. I've been really blessed, but I have a lot of friends who've lost people to the virus. Have you lost anyone? But you can't just come at it with an interview and be ready with even if you got good questions, you got 20 good questions. You're like, I'm gonna get this one. Okay, tell me. Right, I'm gonna relate. Here I go. Right, I'm gonna knock on this door. I'm gonna get this leader. Okay, doesn't work either. But the goal is actually showing some of yourself. The goal of the interaction is, can I get a sense of this person, and can I give them a sense of me? These are small minutes. You're not talking for half an hour. You want to be able to go, do I want to come back to this door? Is there something that I took away that says I want to follow up with this person? Great, wonderful. 5 minutes, you don't bother them, and you move on. Otherwise, you're going to be that nuisance, and every time they see that blue shirt come on the door, they're going to hide and cover the curtain. Okay? Let's do one more. Who else wants to come up?
Who is it?
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
It's good for you.
Ooh,
What do you want?
well, my name is Kenny Walker, and member of Knox Presbyterian Church, which is right in community. I'm a neighbor of yours.
Listen, I don't want to talk about this God stuff this morning.
I understand, but I'm not here to talk about us. Let's
Oh.
talk about you.
Oh,
I'm here to find out what's your interest. How are you doing? How are you doing during this COVID?
life is hard. What's your name again?
Ooh, Kenny.
Kenny.
Yeah.
Life is hard, Kenny. I can't say I'm making ends meet. Nothing's coming together. Can't rub pennies together. So much going on in this world, man. It's hard. That's why I can't say good morning, Kenny.
Let's see. Well, what is it? What's that one thing that's bugging you about what's going on? Because you're saying life is hard and everything. I just want to know what's that
Just
one
one.
thing that's really
You want just one.
That one major thing.
One
that's really
major
getting to
thing.
you.
Kenny, one major thing for me is grieving all the lives lost in my city. And people keep saying they're going to bring change, and nothing's happening. I've had a nephew who was killed. I've had friends and family who, if they weren't killed, they were the results of the violence in our community. I'm just tired of it. I'm grieving. I'm tired of politicians. That's why I don't care about voting. I'm just tired, Kenny.
I understand. I really do. That's the reason why I'm out here. I'm out here to try to make a difference. Maybe to talk to people who feel the same way that I do. You know, I don't like what's going on. That's why I'm out here. So I'm just out here to see your point, to see how you're feeling, and maybe, just maybe, you have something that you can give me, which I can bring to others and help
So
others.
if you were out here for a difference, nothing ever changes, Kenny. So why do you need to know what I know and what I think and what I can teach you? Because it's going to stay the same.
Well, I had a brother who, he kind of like hung with the wrong people, and he got caught up with drugs and stuff like that. He's an older brother, so I kind of learned from that. I learned the wrong way. I learned what not to do instead of what to do. But I saw that he went to jail. His life went down, and he's a brilliant guy. He just went the wrong way. And he's trying to get his life back in order. So one of the reasons I'm out here is that maybe I can help others who I can stop them before they start that road down the wrong way.
I know how that
So,
feels. Yeah.
The thing is, looking for, tell me this. If you had the power to change something, what would that something be?
But Kenny, hearing your story, I know how that feels. Like I said, my family's been impacted by the violence. They've been in those things. If I had the power to change anything, it would be to give opportunity to my friends and family so they don't choose that path that your older brother did and that my cousin and my nephews did. If I had the opportunity to change anything, it'd be better education so that our kids, our community can have other opportunities.
All right. That's powerful. Listen, is there a way I can just get your number? Maybe we could talk later and see if I find some things that could help you out. Man, I'll call you and let you know. And then
I'll tell you
have
what,
any
Kenny,
ideas,
when you first
just give
knocked
me
on
a
my
call.
door, I was irritated. But hearing your story, I'm willing to talk again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, don't go on. Give it up for Kenny! All right, how did you feel? How did you feel in the conversation?
I felt like at first I was going to get the door slammed.
Right.
But as I got him to talk more and more, kind of almost got a bond, not necessarily a bond with, but we had that like relation.
What was the moment that felt like you got closer, you built some trust?
Probably when he told me that he heard my story, he understood.
How did it feel to be understood? And how about you, Reverend Hopkins? How did the interaction go for you?
So Rachel,
be honest.
Rachel told me to be tough. Okay, so if y'all know me, I'm so kind and merciful. I'm like,
try to be tough.
I tried, but I'll tell you, when you shared the story, I felt like you led the conversation to humanity rather than topics and issues.
Right.
And it was hard to focus on issues once you made it personal.
Yeah, it was hard to focus on issues once you made it personal. What? Go ahead, T, please. Go ahead. So he said, hey, Rachel told me to be tough. I tried that. I tried. But when he started to share his own story, it made it very human, and it made it difficult for me to talk just about issues. I had to say something about myself. That only happened, Kenny, because you shared about yourself first, right? If you're showing up at every door to try to get something from people versus trying to share as well, you're gonna have transactional conversations. You're not here for a transaction, you're here for a relationship. It's So the conversation should sound like somebody you're curious about and you want a relationship with. And your vulnerability, and you're willing to share about your anger and your grief and your pain, caused a reaction in him. So if you're looking for who's angry, if you're looking who's got some fire in their belly, who's willing to take a risk, who's gone through something, who's experienced something, you gotta be willing to share about yourself. That was the most important thing I think you did. Let's go back through real quick. We did something else. He opened the door and he credentialed himself, didn't he? What did he say?
From Knox Presbyterian Church, Preston Eden as Church of Name.
Right. And then you jumped a little bit quickly right into like, hey, man, I want to fix the neighborhood, right? You jumped a little bit quick, but then you backed up and you were able to, the conversation's not going to go in a straight line. It's going to go it changes. You have to go with the flow. So let's give a round of applause. And then we're going to get up and get going right now. So remember, we're going to get to the door and the goal of this interaction is, do I want to come back to this person? Can I get a sense of them? Can they get a sense of me? Are they somebody other people respect? What can I learn from this person? What do I want to share? You got to be willing to ask an uncomfortable question. We call that agitation, not irritation, right? The agitator in your washing machine, the whole purpose of it, that plastic thing, is help bring up the dirt. We can't clean the work. We can't clean what we're dealing with unless we put it in public. You got to be willing to say, hey, you know what? I live up the street. I'm really frustrated. I'm really angry that we had to live in trash when Canton and Lake Roland and other places, their trash seems to get picked up. Is that your experience? You got to be willing to say the uncomfortable thing. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. So then you got to know what we're evaluating. Yes, Rachel, please.
Question doesn't have to be the second, but I thought for people who are maybe new to this and feeling a little nervous, like, because it can be just to know, like, how do I go from knocking on your door to say hello to kind of like wrapping the I thought that Kenny did a really great job of just standing there listening. Yes. I really noticed how he listened, and then he said, I hear you, or I understand, I think he said. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important to tell someone, I'm listening to you, nodding your head, sure. And things like that. So I wanted to give that feedback, but then also ask you, what do you do if you feel like you don't have a story like Kenny did on the fly to say, I can connect with you? Sure.
So let's ask you. Yeah. You're at the door, you're having that interaction. Hey, right. I'm curious. I'm your neighbor. I know where you live, right? You live. Right. George told me where you live. I know where you live. Sorry, that was a little creepy. Hey, I live nearby. I'm just trying to get to know more of my neighbors. I don't know if you know me and my husband. We live down the street. How are you today? Have this interaction. And you're trying to probe around, like, who is this person? How long have you lived here? Tell me about it. How's your family survived the pandemic? We're fine, but did you hear about that gunshot at the corner? And right? Maybe that's something that you bring up. Hey, I'm just curious. Did you hear about that? How's your family? And they tell you something hard. How would you respond?
And thank you for sharing that with me. I hear you. I hear you. There's a lot of things that happen in the neighborhood that I feel like aren't right.
What happened in the neighborhood that I feel is not right?
Yeah, I would just say, as you walk, we're going to go out soon. And as you do, all of us have a story. And I think what I've learned with organizing is that part of the agitating starts with us. We all have something that we can share. And it'll be good for you as you walk to begin to do that, to begin asking yourself, what can I share? Because one of the things that we do is we find a lot of reasons to disqualify ourselves.
Yes.
And you will be pleasantly surprised going to doors. But begin asking yourself, what can I share and show my full self and not feel like I got to hide something or be someone that I'm not? And so I think what Rachel often does with me, and she's doing with you, is that you have to begin to be agitated right now to know that you have something that you can connect with another human being.
That's right. Yeah. We're all going through the pandemic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a safe place, I feel like, or if you feel stuck. I just want to care for the people who maybe are real nervous. This is the first
Absolutely.
time.
Well, and even if you don't have your own story of violence, you have the story of knowing that happened down the street. What does that do to your mind? What do you think about? You have children, I'm sure, that you care about in this neighborhood. I've been thinking about this. I'm curious what it was like for them. That's your story of being in relationship with others, right? Yeah, you got to know where you're at before you just start to, run and ask whatever questions matter to you.
We have some notepads too and
Yeah,
some pens. So if you don't have something that you are comfortable with writing with, you don't necessarily need to write during the encounter, but maybe you write afterwards, or maybe you write at the end of a block. This is a lot of people's first time. I remember years and years ago, I did this with high school students in East Baltimore, and we just went out and we said, we won't come back till every person has prayed with someone. And we were overwhelmingly blessed because we've prepared you for disappointments. We can't prepare you for the surprises.
Right.
You will be surprised at how God will work in these encounters that you will have.
And I see that PROAction is kind of the outward facing piece of our church that is helping kind of to spearhead our work in the community, to help us learn together how to listen and learn from our neighbors so that we can love them the way Jesus wants us to love them. That's basically why we're here tonight and why we're going out on Saturday.
I'll share briefly what is a listening campaign. I took some information from some great resources that actually Rachel Brooks knows about, which is great. So a listening campaign is a focused effort to build community and identify concerns and priorities in a specific organization, neighborhood, or workplace. In this case, we're talking about our neighborhood area of Soweto. And it can also help a group shape its vision to find out where it is now and where it wants to go in the future. And we hope that this is really what these conversations with the community help us do as the Soweto PROAction group. A listening campaign is also the foundation of community organizing because it builds trust and relationships, it uncovers issues, and is an essential starting point for bringing people together to share stories, ideas, and actions. And this is the reason why all this time we've been talking about the need to learn from our community and about our community better. What is the purpose of a listening campaign? Is to connect stories, to build relationships, to identify leaders, to identify issues that people are concerned about, and also to understand how these issues affect people in the community. And there is a link we can share with you actually, and this is in the resources, the community resources folder. So you can have access to this and the link of where I got this information. So what are the different venues for listening? You can do, listening through a one-on-one conversation. You can have group meetings, call people in for a meeting. You can have a focus group where you have specific questions that you can ask this focus group for information that you're looking for. You can have what we're going to be doing this Saturday, a door knocking event where we go out and cover a specific area. I know they also, this was a word that I didn't know until this year, where I got involved in volunteering, which is canvassing. So canvassing is covering a specific geographic area and going out door knocking. You can also have a survey. It can even be a phone survey or just a survey that people fill out to provide information or to provide what is their life like, what are they going through, what are their concerns. Some of the questions that people can ask during a listening campaign include, what is the most significant thing happening in your life and that of your family? What are the challenges that you are facing right now? What are your concerns about the neighborhood? What are your concerns about Soweto? And what would you most like to see changed? Another question I saw that was really good is that, what would you be willing to do to see this change? So, because the idea is that people, they themselves get involved in seeing this change happen. That's it, that's the introduction. And I just wanted to remind you of the map of the Soweto area that we saw last time, that we practically are just considering the similar area as the Southwest Partnership that includes the 7 neighborhoods. And what are the limits to that map? Here's the Google map of that area.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cecilia. Hi, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Rachel Brooks. I'm the lead organizer with BUILD, Baltimoreans United in Leadership Development. It's been so great to finally get to see more of your faces, and all of you live up to what Reverend Hopkins and the team here at PROAction has been talking about with the talent that's in this group. So I'm really excited to get to know more of you. So really quick, we did a wonderful training outside a few weeks ago with leaders from Sacred Heart of Jesus and Bishop Bruce Lewandowski about the work that their congregation did to similarly hit 5 or 6 neighborhoods that they really wanted to invest in. And the good news is that this team is better at technology than me. I normally have a flip chart where I write things on the board, so we have it recorded. So one thing that I would ask of all of you is if you can get a chance to look at that link and take a second to get a little bit deeper into that training. I think it'll really make you feel good before you go out this Saturday. But that said, let's dive in and just try to get a little bit of sense of what are we doing at the doors. The team's really laid out a little bit of why. We believe that inside of these neighborhoods are talented leaders that are sitting there looking for an opportunity to be able to act with others in meaningful ways. That might be internally inside as a member inside of your congregation. That might be externally inside of an issue that's happening in their neighborhood. But we don't know who they are unless we find them, unless we're interested in them. So Cecilia just laid out, the examples. We're trying to learn and understand what's the vision that people have for themselves and their families. The primary thing that you are doing at the door, you're not taking a survey, you're not tracking data, you're not trying to map out a place, you're trying to build a relationship. You don't want a relationship with everybody, right? Are we in agreement with that? There's a lot of people that I don't want to be in a relationship with. So when we're going to the door, we're trying to figure out, is this somebody that I'm interested in building a relationship with? And what kind of relationship are we trying to build? In BUILD, we talk about the difference between public relationships and private relationships. And what I mean by that is I hope that you all have vibrant, healthy, private relationships, people who are going to say, girl, no matter what you do, I love you exactly the way that you are, right? And that relationship is based on unconditional love. In our public world, if we go out onto the street or go into the mayor's office seeking unconditional love, we're probably gonna get hurt. Am I right on that? Right? Just a basic understanding of the difference between public and private. So we're coming out, knocking on doors, and we're looking for a leader that we can develop a relationship with. Now, I'm just gonna pick on somebody. Daniel, can I pick on you?
Feel free.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna ring your door. Ready? Ring, ring, ring.
Hello?
Hey, Daniel, it's me, Rachel. I'm here with Sewell Community Church. I know we don't know each other, but I'm here because I really want to build a public relationship with you. Can I have 5 minutes of your time?
Sorry, we don't want any.
That's weird, right? It's a little uncomfortable. If I were to do the same thing and say, what's the primary issue facing you and your family right now?
I don't think I should tell you that.
Who are you? Right? So what's the first thing that you do at a door when you want to build a relationship with somebody? There's no secret answer.
You introduce yourself.
Introduce myself. Yes. So in this case, hi, my name is Rachel Brooks. How are you? It's nice to see you. Thank you for coming out and give me a second.
Introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself. I'm here with. You credential yourself. Why am I at your door? Who sent you? Are you here to try to get me to sell my house? I heard there's a developer down the street trying to buy homes. Is that you? You want to credential yourself. Hey, my name is Rachel. I'm here with Sewell Community Church. How are you? We're the church down the street at the school. Oh yeah, I've seen y'all out there in the back of the school doing like cookouts and things like that. Okay, what are you here for? Right? So the first thing you got to do is credential yourself. Second thing you got to do is say why you're here. And hey, we're here because I'm trying to get to know the neighborhood more. I'm trying to learn more about my neighbors. We have a lot of people who live nearby. How long have you lived here? Start a conversation. What is it you want to learn about this person? A conversation is two-way. If you constantly peddle somebody with questions, they're going to think they're in an interview and that you want something. So it's a two-way conversation where you want to share something about yourself. That can be uncomfortable. We don't know people. So please don't think that we're asking you to go knock on doors and like tell strangers all of your feelings. That's not going to work either, right? The goal is, can I get a sense of this person? Can they get a sense of me? And can I say, hey, I'm curious what your experience has been like. A lot of your neighbors, for example, have been talking about the fact that Wi-Fi and digital divide here is really frustrating for them and their kids at home. Has that been your experience? And see what kind of conversation you can get into. That's an example, right? If you show up my door, I don't have a clipboard in front of me, but if you show up my door and you have your clipboard in front of your face and you're ready to take notes, is this a good way to build a relationship? Probably not. So we want you to be able to take data. We want you to, when you identify a leader, to want to come back to their house. And I'm pretty sure this team has found, one-pagers and things like that for you to be able to fill that out after your route. But the most important thing is relationship. So really quickly, do's and don'ts. Never go alone. Never go alone. Where two or more are gathered, there he will be also, right? We want to follow that. Never go alone. Number two, always bring a charged cell phone, right? You want to have something in your pocket. You want to know, you can call somebody, you want to know where you are. Got to know that. Bring something to write on. If it's a small pocket, pen and paper, keep it in your pocket. The other thing that I really recommend when doing listening sessions broadly is to scout your turf. Go and look at it. What are you curious to learn? What do you notice? If you go to Reverend Hopkins' house and you turn on Fulton, the first block, every single home is being rebuilt and they all have signs on it. Who's the company that is selling all of those homes? We're trying to get a sense of what's going on in people's lives. So I could talk about this for an hour and I gotta stop. I apologize. Any quick reactions or things like this? I think the most important thing is that you feel comfortable, you have a good time, you go out, you meet interesting people, and you have a chance to learn this by doing it.
I had a question. So for this particular one, I think the idea is that we'll have like bags of cookies for people. So the question is, so like Rachel, in your experience, how would you handle like an offering? Would it be like the primary lead-in to a conversation, or would it be like oh, by the way, we are doing this cookie thing at the end?
I don't know enough about the cookie process. If the ultimate goal is to give cookies to your neighbors, then yeah, I'd be like, hey, my name's Nate. How are you? I'm here with Sweetwood Church. We're bringing cookies today. Would you like some? What's your name? How long have you lived here? Tell me about the neighborhood. We have some people we're right down the street. Have you ever seen us out doing anything? Try to figure out, is this somebody you want to come back to? Short, sweet, simple conversation, and write it down as someone that you want to talk to again.
Yes. So what do we do because I don't live in the neighborhood any longer, but I'm definitely a part of the community. What do we do when they're like, well, I've never seen you around here before?
You get to tell them your story. Well, yeah, actually, I lived down the block. In your case, I lived down the block, for however long, but I'm now a member at Sowebo, and we do this, cookie tour every year. We're excited to get to know you. What's your name? The goal is to get a sense of them.
Okay, I got you.
And we're going to try to pair people who are residents with non-residents to help in that too.
I just want to, one thing I would like to inoculate against. We talked about this more in the training, and so I won't go into a lot of detail about it. All of us have been sold a bill of goods about who is a leader and who is not. What leaders look like, what their degree looks like, what their zip code is, what their house looks like. We've been told that a leader has an image or has certain skills that make them more charismatic, et cetera, et cetera. And the problem with that definition is, if we're honest, that definition takes all of us out of leadership. That definition can't work because there are leaders right here on this call. And if we don't know that, we're going to walk into this process and we're going to overlook people and we're going to stereotype people and we're going to miss out on some of the most talented people who could change the city and could really bring about justice in a way that meets the mission, right? So just be thinking about that. If you count yourself out, you're going to count someone else out too.
Question. How do you balance talking between the person you're with, or do you sort of talk about it beforehand or go with the flow?
You mean your partner?
Yeah.
It's a good question. We went out in twos on our first route. Is anyone who went out want to share about their experience?
In mine, it was kind of easy, the first one, because it was Spanish speakers. And so I asked them what language they were more comfortable with. And so I spoke Spanish.
T and I just kind of alternated. So we talked about that ahead of time of like, just alternating kind of who led the conversation. But then we obviously, all jumped in as kind of conversation led.
I also noticed that sometimes the resident would decide who they wanted to talk to. Like Jonathan would start talking and then she'd face me like, as I was saying, like, okay, this is me now.
Right. And the thing that sometimes happens when we do trainings is like, we all forget that we have conversations with humans every single day, right? Like somehow there's some magic formula to have a conversation about somebody you want to know. There isn't. The difference is, who are you looking for? And a public relationship is a relationship that goes somewhere, right? It's not that it's a transaction. Are you a leader? Are you not a leader? Join the team. That's not what it is, right? But we are looking to build these relationships. Why? Because you all as a congregation feel called to learn, feel called to act, and feel called to have power that is relational, that matches what we see between Christ and his disciples, which matches what the early church was called to do. And in order to do that, we need power for what? The things that are facing our city and facing your neighborhoods will not be changed unless we have organized people and organized money acting around a focus. And that focus can be the life and thriving of Southwest Baltimore. But for it to be real, it has to be shared. There has to be consent. And these are leaders that are going to be leading in your community one day. Who you meet at these doors is going to be the team that is leading the fight with you, whatever that may be, whether it's the digital divide, whether it's women who are coming out of prostitution, whether it's constant violence, whether it's rebuilding our neighborhoods from lack of investment. That it's exciting to me who could be the next team of leaders helping us do that together.
That just raised a question for me as far as like talking, having an engaging conversation is one thing. Do you recommend ever like getting referrals of leaders that a resident perceives to be a leader in their block or neighborhood and like talk about that? Or is it more, do you usually try to keep it personal to like that household?
It's both, right? At the end of a conversation, if this is somebody who you're interested in and you trust, right? I can't name how many people you meet at the doors who go, who if you were to ask them directly if they're a leader, they would say no, you got the wrong person. And often the person who says no is the real leader, right? But yeah, if you develop somebody and you're saying, oh, hey, who else do you know on the block? Who else do you relate to that's interested in what you just shared?
Yeah.
If you hear somebody saying, I'm tired of these people dumping in my back, have you talked to any of your neighbors about that? Who are they? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, don't ask for referrals from somebody that you really don't want to talk to anymore, right?
Yeah.
I have a question. Have you had experience or tips for if we go to a building that's apartments?
Yeah, with COVID, that's everyone's choice of what they feel safe with. I personally, I'm not going in anyone's home right now. I'm not going into a building right now. I don't think that that's the right thing to do, especially in the wintertime. But if we weren't in the pandemic, I would say when you go 2 by 2 into apartment complex, that is something that we do. And ideally, scouting and really knowing where you are first is a really important first step. But I don't think you'll run into that right now because of the season we're in.
So one good piece of advice that I received is approach somebody like you would want to be approached. So don't come to their door in a way that you wouldn't be receptive of.
In one of our scenarios, the neighbor actually took all of our cookies for the day. So.
And you let them have all them cookies?
Not sure what to do when you run out of supply.
I'm sorry, 1 bag per person.
I mean, we were trying to develop a relationship, and they were like, "Oh, I'm hungry."
You're worth it. I'll give you all the cookies.
Boundaries are good.
I think we got shark though, so.
Well, I think that the point that you had mentioned was looking at the conversation as a gift. So I think one of the challenges sometimes walking into these types of conversations is it's a conversation. You're getting to know somebody, but there's a bit of a purpose to it as well. And I think one of the things that takes the edge off for me is it's an opportunity to get to know somebody, and that really is a gift. So looking at it that way, I think, is something that's a bit of encouraging to me. And then all the conversations about cookies just made me hungry, so I had to grab one.
Mia, what do you think? So I had that thought about the cookies being safe. And I think I said to Mia, we have these cookies and they're like the safest cookies possible. Did that make you feel more comfortable?
Yeah, it was like, oh, cookies without any fear attached to them.
Don't give me a COVID cookie. Yeah, I mean, I think first off, having a cookie is like, watch out, because if you come with cookies the first time, everyone's gonna be, are y'all the cookie people? I'm expecting, is there a cookie next time? No, I think this is a great way to start. Has any doctor, or is there a doctor on the team that can say, yeah, like we sign off, just like you said, these are safe. Just be like, yeah, we checked it out with doctors, like you're all good, in case someone's asking extra questions.
But I did talk with a high-level city administrator about this project. They did have some concerns, but we have a number of things in protocol. For instance, like the city has a maximum grouping of 10 people, even outdoors, for any event right now. So even when we show up, we're going to ask everyone to kind of section off into approximate pods of 8. Where I'll be able to distribute the cookies to you. We also ask that, just for extra precaution, that you, as much as you want to see everybody and love everybody, if you want to do that after the tour, that's your own business. But we ask you not to cross from one pod of an 8 to another pod of an 8. It will just allow, in the rare case of anything that does go south, it will help the city with traceability and other things, knowing who is paired together, what groups went to which blocks, went to which houses, etc. But we're going to take every precaution necessary, but the city is aware of it. We wanted to make sure we're doing due diligence and not just in a good idea, bringing any risk to our neighbors and our community. And everything we kind of have planned has been signed off on, and seems like the safest possible approach to this sort of thing.
Yes. During our group, the groups went pretty well. I mean, the role plays went pretty well. But I know from my experience, I don't live in Cerebro any longer. But one of the reasons I left Cerebro was because I had issues with the drugs, the rampant amount of drugs in the neighborhood. I couldn't stay away from, because I had my own deals, because I'm in recovery, and I struggled with that. So I had to leave Cerebro, and I don't know how has it gotten any better, or is it still just as bad as as I remember?
That's a question.
Gary, sorry, I don't know if I understood what you said correctly. Are you saying that you might feel uncomfortable coming back into the neighborhood?
I won't feel uncomfortable. I won't feel uncomfortable. I just didn't know whether that would be an uncomfortable topic to bring up. I mean, when we're trying to get to know them, how do you feel about the climate of the neighborhood? I mean, they're selling drugs on this corner. Do you feel safe? Because that was one of the issues that I had, because I didn't feel safe as much anymore because I had so many strokes and I was walking with a cane and I couldn't walk fast and people were rushing by me trying to make sales and do all these kind of things, and I didn't know whether or not, because that's one of my first concerns about trying to help in this community, is try to approach the issues with drugs and mental illness that go on. And so that's one of the things I'd be curious to find out about from the neighbors.
Cecilia, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has who lives in Sowebo has any comments, that would be good. But yeah, I think definitely something to keep in mind about what are people feeling in terms of either issues or safety or concerns that they may have. That may be part of the conversation that comes up during the door knocking.
Right.
No, I agree. And then, Gary, the only thing that I would say is, relationships take time. You're at the door, and if you're having a positive conversation and, the topic comes up and you want to share your story, share your story. Don't feel obligated. That you all get to share about yourselves, what you want to share. And know that you can come back. It's not like you get a one and done shot. You can come back and have a deeper conversation if you feel like this is somebody that you want to engage on, right? But if someone comes right at it and is like, hey, did y'all hear about that shooting the other day? And you want to have a conversation about it, don't hold back. But
yeah, and T says in the comments, Gary, as a neighbor, I would rather talk about that than the weather and holidays anytime. So engaging in deeper conversation rather than just small talk, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, that's how it came up in the role play. Gary was bringing it up as like, yeah, this is something that was concerning to me when I lived here, but how is it for you? So just
honestly, it made me think about, we have a friend who was a community organizer, and he moved from a recovery place to a building where I think there was just a lot of drugs, and he died of an overdose this year.
Sorry.
And I feel like, Gary, when you asked that, it's like, yeah, that happens. People feel temptation, and so it's it's something very personal. I think people would be if any of these topics come up, I think we just need to be prepared also to be able to really hear people out.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think the hearing people is the key here. We listen to where they're going, and if they express a concern about safety, maybe that is something you end up talking about. Not necessarily what you lead with, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point, Linda.
Linda, to that point, I think it can be confusing. You knock on the door, you think you're good, you practice what you're going to say in your head, door opens, and then you have that moment of nervousness, and you just get scattered for a second, and you say something like, what do you want to change about your neighborhood? Right? And it's fine. We do that all the time. But recognize that if the goal is relationship, then you're trying to have something that feels natural. That doesn't mean that we don't point out what's happening. sometimes the best way to rub that sore of discontent is point out what is happening. Hey, I'm curious what you think about this. Did you hear about what happened the other day? Did you see what happened? What do you think about that? I'm curious. So there are different ways to get at what we're going for.
Rachel, that makes me think of something that I read in as I was preparing for the introduction. There was one part that said about community organizing and listening campaigns, like you want to channel people's anger, what they feel angry about, and really bring so that people feel like they have to do something about it.
Right. Yeah. And we can talk more about that. When you look at the link, we'll talk a lot about anger, a little bit, like what's the fire in somebody's belly. There's a difference between somebody who wants to complain about every problem that's in the neighborhood. And we talked about that in our group, right? They can list out every single person who's got a problem, what they did and when they did it and what, DPW this. But if you were to really challenge that person on, oh, that's interesting. How many people like you do you know who care about that? Who else do you talk to? If we were to put together a Zoom of people who want to talk about in the neighborhood, how many people could you bring? And that's like goose egg. One of the ways that we define who a leader is somebody that other people follow. Do you respect this person? Is this somebody that other people are drawn to, right? So that's a way to challenge people. If you get somebody who's seems like they're a go-getter, okay, let's put our money where our mouth is here. Who else do you relate to?
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, can I ask a question about the listening campaign and strategy and so on and so forth? I know that we're supposed to be surveying like what neighbors believe to be, like the needs of the community, but what about just like asking how we can pray for them, like individually, like what their personal needs are? Because I mean, a lot of times, like whatever they're facing is probably going to be what the community needs as a whole. So I don't know if that's like childcare, I mean, if we're trying to be authentic in developing relationships with them, like I know that's one thing that I would want to prioritize is like, all right, how can we love and care for you first before the community?
How can we be proactive?
Yeah, I think, well, my sense is also just personally, I feel like we all have different ways of engaging. And so I think to keep the purposes in mind of building relationships, of the church, we're representing the church, we're representing each other even, and maybe try to keep it natural. I agree with what Rachel was saying too, like the nervousness. Like I think at the beginning, I personally will just blurt out whatever and then try to figure out how to really, like out of nervousness, just say things, but then maybe start to really think about how do I engage and really see the person. Rachel, any last, I guess, piece of advice or last thought to share before, as an ending of this part?
Trust yourself. You know how to talk to people. You're going out and having a good conversation, right? You are not looking for issues to fix. If you're doing that, you're going to be a hammer and everything is going to be a nail. You're trying to be curious about what is going on. So you're asking questions, you're showing interest, you're showing yourself. The issues will always come up. Don't worry, they will come up. You'll be inundated. But if you don't have a team, then any issue that comes up, you won't be able to solve it, right? So just remember that, surfacing people, and then yes, getting a sense of the issues that are going on. But other than that, you'll come out with a giant issue platform and no team willing to act on it. And that won't do you any good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm definitely going to be out on the doors with you one of these days again. So I'm really looking forward to the work. Good luck. And I'll see you all soon.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Primarily, I'm worried and concerned about everyone's safety. As a director for the church, we just want to keep everyone as safe as possible for this event. It's an invitation. It's not a must to be there. We do realize that anything we do, whether it's having dinner with your dad or seeing a friend in a park or who you have in your home, everyone has their different levels of risk, and we respect that. We want to do our part to keep everyone as safe as possible. So like I mentioned earlier, we'll be meeting we'll get going around 10 a.m., but if people could be prompt so we can get moving. We'll meet in front of Stuart Hill, try to group off into groups about 8, so we keep with those city ordinances and make it just a little bit more space between us. We would appreciate that. Inside the bag, might be reversed on your screen, I apologize, but we have the little Sowebo kind of business card. On the back, what you might have seen before, the church is more than a building, find out how. And then it has some contact information. Our T's flipping out, she hasn't seen these yet. On one side, our website, the other side, info@sowebochurch.com. Another thing we want to ask you to do is being aware as we're visiting people's homes, they may come outside, even if they're very careful, even if they're very safe. They were just minding their business. They were just making lunch. They were just watching TV. They might come and answer the door without a mask. So be cautious about distance. We want to, continue to keep away from people. We want to let them know who we are. You could just say, hey, we're neighbors from Sowebo Community Church. We're just distributing some cookies today. I wanted to see how you're doing. If they're not wearing a mask, we'll give you guys extra masks. You could ask them if they'd like a mask while you chat. And really the agenda is not at all to push or brand our church. The idea here is to listen and to see how people are doing. Our city administrator did ask that we keep conversations brief. Again, just to limit that window of how long we're interacting with neighbors. So I'm not sure, honestly, if that's a good strategy or bad strategy as far as a listening campaign is concerned. But one thing it does is it really gives us another opportunity. So, right, the cookie is just the vehicle that gets us to the door to make this conversation a little bit more comfortable. And then really this limited conversation also gives us a second opportunity, because we want to limit our conversations, probably like 5-8 minutes, 10 minutes a max. But it gives us an opportunity to say, hey, we just want to respect you, keep your family safe during this pandemic. If you're comfortable, I'd love to get your information and continue this conversation. Or we'd love to know more about that. Would you mind shooting an email to that, the info on that card? So it gives us an opportunity to actually go back and connect again, whether it be an email or a text or following up with that person. So if they have no interest in talking to us, they take the cookie, they don't take the cookie, they don't have to, no big deal. But if you kind of identify that person who's on fire, wants to talk about these things, wants to engage in our community, use the opportunity to say, I want to keep you safe. I'm going to get out of your hair and let you go about your day. I'd love to talk to you again, or someone from our church would love to talk to you again. It's not an advertisement for the church. It's just here to listen. But if that conversation happens naturally, use that as an opportunity to connect again. The object is not to get them in our pew. We don't even have a pew right now, but to really engage with folks and hear what's going on. So we'll give you guys kind of starter cookie bags and stuff, but if you need more masks, if you need hand sanitizer, if you need to tell me where you are, I'm going to give you my number now. So just go ahead and call me on Saturday and I could be responsive. One more thing that popped into my head, as friendly as people might be, for a number of reasons, if anyone invites you to come too close or invites you in their home, just respectfully say, no, we want to just keep ourselves safe and you safe. I prefer not to do that. Thank you so much. Even when we're walking our dogs, Rachel and I have had conversations with people who have invited us in their home to meet their dog. And that's a really random thing. And that's actually a really relational thing that I'm surprised has happened. And we respectfully said, no thanks, but that's cool that people are even willing to do that. It shows that there's a want and a need just for someone to listen, but please don't go in anybody's home.
We'll wear masks, of course, bring hand sanitizer. We are meeting, good question, Adria. We are meeting right in front of Stuart Hill Academy. So our old stomping grounds, we're going to be right out front. But like Brian said, we're going to be very careful. If you come in a group of 3 or 4, stick to that pod and don't join more, just a group of 8 or even smaller. So we're going to keep separate from each other, wave from afar, keep 6 feet apart from each other.
And we were thinking it's good to pair residents with non-residents so that we have like that comfort of knowing we are with another neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Last question for planning where people are going. Is it preferable that since I live on Lombard, would it be preferable that I talk to my neighbors, or would you prefer somebody that doesn't live on Lombard to talk to my neighbors?
Yeah, good question. I actually feel that I'd rather not go on my block and be able to meet other neighbors who I haven't met before. But, like Cecilia said, on Saturday, we'll be figuring that out. If you prefer being on your block on Lombard, just let us know, and that's great. We'll send you with your team right on your block.
Yeah, I think that depends on. Yeah, that was one thing that seemed like a good recommendation that will make things kind of easier to come into the block. So I think, like I say, with a map and with everyone who will be there a resident, I don't know if it would make sense to have everyone who is a resident maybe understand which block you're part of. I don't have that information, but then we will be able to have a better idea for that.
Yeah, I think some of those logistics we can iron out for Saturday. And actually, once people register, then we can know a little bit more.
Can I ask one quick question? Should we expect like an email or something on Friday night of like what team we will be with, so we know like what block to go or what group to congregate at, groups of 8 and all, or should we just is that going to be figured out Saturday morning?
I would say that depends on, Brian doesn't work Fridays, so probably not. So probably Saturdays. Saturday will just be easiest. Just to team people up. Not everyone's going to know each other either, so I just think that might be extra work. People are going to show up and then not know where to stand anyway. So.
And we can meet ahead of time for those of us who are the organizers on Saturday before everyone arrives there, so we will have a better idea.
Yeah, quick story.
I can't promise that, but okay. Yeah, but we could try.
We'll look at the registries and get a better feel for things.
Yeah.
That's a big part of the registration. And I'll definitely be on site to help direct people as they arrive.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, and that is, Brian, will you equip the groups with extra business cards in case someone wants contact information but does not want cookies?
Yes, I could do that.